Now, some motoring experts have been calling for a late-night curfew to be enforced on teenage drivers in an attempt to cut the number of car crash deaths. A new survey has found that they account for nearly 1 in 8 serious crashes. Another measure on the table would be to limit the number of young passengers that can be carried in a car. Research from the RAC Foundation showed that more than 11% of crashes where someone was killed or injured involved a driver aged between 17 and 19. Now, that's despite the age group only accounting for 1.5% of licensed drivers. Dyfed Powys in South Wales was the worst affected area, with 18% of accidents involving a teenage driver. It was followed by Gwent, Cumbria, the Northern and Grampian regions and Cornwall. In London, teenagers accounted for more than 5% of serious collisions. Well, live in our central London studios, Wale Yusuff, the founder of driversedgeuk.com and the general manager of the road safety education organisation S.A.M.E Academy. Good to talk to you. The statistics kind of speak for themselves here. Some of these ideas might make a difference.
Well, potentially they might make a difference, but I think what needs to happen for these young drivers and the young people in the United Kingdom and throughout Europe is more education. That's what needs to happen, because if you look at it, they need to be educated a lot more in the classroom, like they do in Australia, New Zealand, some states in America, and of course, Canada. They need to understand the dangers of irresponsible driving rather than being somewhat punished or restricted.
Well, I'll ask you whether it's punishment or not in a moment, but so that would make the whole driving test much longer and more difficult to get through?
Well, potentially it might make it more difficult to get through, but actually they need this in comparison to the curfews that might come with the ABI and the government, what they're looking to bring in. I think that what we should be doing is putting a lot more money towards road safety education. £159 million is spent on drug abuse and sexual health and other various things in the United Kingdom. But if you were to ask me how much money is actually spent on road safety education, and so that these young drivers understand the importance of irresponsible driving, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And so, we need to do a lot more of it up until the driving test, after the driving test as well.
But, I mean, the ideas are, you call them punishment, but, these are, the analogy is with birds leaving the nest. They're fledgling drivers, they're not very experienced, and it's saying things like, don't drive too fast, don't carry too many passengers, and don't drive in difficult conditions until you know how to deal with them. OK, so maybe punishment is not necessarily the most appropriate word to use. But what we think there's a danger of the government seeing an increase in the number of illegal drivers as a result of these restrictions that will be put in place. So why don't we work with the young drivers, a bit like what telematics car insurance is doing at the moment, where young drivers and young people are getting car insurance premiums on a case-by-case basis rather than generalising, and they're also financially rewarded as well. So in our opinion, what should happen is things like the telematics car insurance mandatory for each and every young driver in the United Kingdom, a lot more in-class learning, highlighting the importance of driving responsibly, not speeding, drinking, drug driving, and what have you, so that the young people understand the dangers of it before they actually get onto the road. Because if you look at it, 3 in 4 road traffic collisions are actually down to the cognitive side of driving in comparison to the technical element of driving, which basically means it's more to do with human behaviour and the decision-making process whilst the young people are on the roads. OK, some more interesting thoughts there. Wale Yusuff, thank you very much indeed for those.